I don't pay my kids an allowance, and you shouldn't either. You want to know why? Because I'm a horrible parent and I hate my kids. I want them to be miserable. All kids are little dummies that don't know how to spend money. I'm just kidding. That's not it at all. You probably think it is, but just listen for a second. So there's 3 official reasons right on this card. And I'm going to talk about number 1 and 2 real briefly because I don't want to get in an argument with people on the internet about parenting kids. But number 1, it doesn't actually teach them money lessons. I'll get more into that in just a minute. It ruins your relationship with kids. You may or may not agree. I don't really care. But number 3, it is the biggest financial mistake you'll ever make. I'm Austin. I talk about stocks and stuff, but I'm also a parent of 3 kids. And I grew up myself never getting an allowance, and I think I was still able to have a pretty good work ethic. Okay, let's talk about number 1 real quick, and then I'm going to show you why it is the worst financial decision you can make to pay your kids an allowance. So number 1, it doesn't actually teach your kids about money. For most of your kids' young life, they are too underdeveloped to really make strategic financial decisions and understand the cause and effect and second and third order effects of decisions they make with money. So the argument that the reason you pay your kids an allowance is to teach them about money is just a really dumb argument. And in fact, by investing for them, which is what I do for my kids instead of pay them allowance, you will teach them far better and more important money lessons for life that will help them not get caught up in crypto scandals and get rich quick schemes, because you are literally going to show them how compound interest is the most magical thing that they could do. And you're going to set them on a path to become an investor the day that they get an income from a job and compound that money for life and then create generations of wealth in the future. This, my friends, is why I don't pay my kids an allowance. I would much rather invest for them instead. I did it through just setting up a simple brokerage account. It's not any type of custodial account. It's not a 529 account. It's not any of that. We can talk about those in a separate video. Let me know in the comment if you want to know more about why. But the bottom line is that by just doing a brokerage account, me and my wife have control of that money. And so if these kids turn to be 18 and just be in prison or terrible adults and making terrible decisions, and they haven't earned what we think is the right to have this financial freedom, we retain control of those accounts. What are you going to do? You're going to pay your kids a $100 allowance on average, we'll say a month, like throughout their lives. Let's look at what that would turn into if they simply invested that instead, or if you simply invested that instead, right? So just for context, historically, how has the stock market done? Just simply investing in the S&P 500, which is very easy to do with one click and one account, and you never have to make that decision again or spend any time on it. From 1926 to 2022, $100 turned into $1 million over that 100-year period, or however many years that is. Inflation adjusted, right, is 6.88% per year. Inflation adjusted, that $100 is now worth $62,000 from just doing $100. So 6.88% is your average return per year, inflation adjusted. Without inflation, it's 10% per year. This is what it looks like if you contribute $100 to an account for your kids until they're 22 years old. So we're doing this essentially until they graduate college, theoretically, or whatever, get out into the workforce and start earning a salary. This is when we're going to tell them that we have this account and show them the impact that it has had and say, hey, this is yours. You've been fantastic. I still love you because you did everything I told you to and never let me down and never did anything I didn't tell you to. Otherwise, I wouldn't love you. But the reason we're doing it this way is because they're going to get this money, see what it has done over time, and immediately want to start investing and keep going with that. This never fails. And if your kid does something different in 22 years, come back to this YouTube channel and let me know. Comment on this video. All right, we are doing an 8% interest rate, right? Or an 8% growth rate. Remember, the average was 10%, but inflation adjusted, it was 6%. Over 22 years, $100 a month would equal this if we just invested in the S&P 500. At 6%, $52,000. Imagine being 22 years old and getting a gift of $52,000 from your parent, and all they had to do was invest in the stock market every month for you. Are you going to want to screw that up and stop doing it? No. Or at 8%, somewhere in the middle, it's worth $66,000, and then at 10%, it's worth $85,000. Okay, so we're playing this out a little bit more. Your child isn't a total screw up, and at the age of 22, they see the power of that and what that's done. They graduate and start making the average salary in America, we'll say between $50,000 and $60,000 in today's dollars, right? What if we could get them to want to aggressively invest when they don't have a lot of liabilities and theoretically a family and all these expenses and stuff? If we could get them them to start investing $500 a month, and they do that for 40 years, starting with that $52,000, which was the low side, again, that 6%, the conservative estimate, starting with $52,000, and again, they got that 8% interest rate, then in 40 years, by the time they turn 62, on the low side, at 6%, they would have $1.4 million. On the middle side, 8%, they'd have $2.6 million. And on the high side, at 10% a year, they'd have $5 million. Imagine the impact that you could have on your kids by investing for them instead of paying them a stupid allowance. What fund would I do this with, right? I don't give recommendations. I'm not a financial advisor. The one I would choose is the Vanguard Total Stock Market ETF. Why? Well, you can see over the last 15 years, it's averaged 9% a year. Over the last 10 years, it's averaged 13%. And over the last 5 years, it's averaged 10%. More importantly than that performance, though, you get exposure to 4,000 companies, 4,000 stocks, basically the entire US stock market. Only 22% of the fund is in the top 10, so it is very well diversified. You've probably heard about the importance of diversification. This is the type of thing you can set it and forget it for your kids forever. And you can see you get large cap exposure, mostly large cap, so that's S&P 500 type stuff. And then medium cap in the middle, right? You got about 15% of that. That's also probably some S&P 500. But then you get a little bit of small cap exposure too. So you have small companies that provide some nice growth opportunities, right? You have a wide spread of basically all the businesses in America. If we look at risk, the worst it's gone down in the last 10 years, according to this, is 24.8%, which was during the COVID crash in 2022. But listen, that's scary, right? But the idea of you would just be throwing that money away if you're paying it to them in allowance anyways, because they're going to spend it on Pokemon cards and other useless stuff. A 24% loss on money that you're investing that's going to eventually go up in the future over a long enough term doesn't matter, right? It does not matter. Buy your kids VTI or another ETF, don't pay them an allowance, and come back and thank me in 22 years when you have the most amazing kids in the world that are perfect in every single way, like my kids. And like the video, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next video. Let me know what else you want to hear about.